During the next half hour, we'll talk to Cardinal Blase Cupich about his opposition to a bill being considered by the state legislature that, if passed, would allow tax dollars to be used for abortions. And hundreds of students from across the Archdiocese attend the African American Heritage Prayer Service at Holy Name Cathedral. We have highlights. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
The Archdiocese of Chicago is a vibrant and diverse faith community. We celebrate our faith through worship, evangelization, and reaching out to the needy. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Hello, I'm Todd Williamson, Director of the Office of Divine Worship for the Archdiocese of Chicago, here in the studio with Cardinal Blase Cupich. Cardinal, it's good to see you.
Good to be with you again, Todd.
We have got kind of a packed show today, so we're going to jump right into a number of things to talk about.
Good.
Start us off, you've recently wrote a letter to the pastors of the parishes in the Archdiocese about House Bill 40. This is brewing in Springfield right now. What would you want us to know about House Bill 40, and what did you ask the pastors to do?
Well, this bill, which was introduced into the House by the representatives in Springfield, calls for a number of things, but one in particular that we're concerned about is that it would provide funding for the first time in our state for abortions. There was a concern because nationally, with the Supreme Court, it may change Roe versus Wade in time, and people wanted to go on record that the state would in fact allow abortions. But at the same time, they slipped into this bill a provision by which taxpayer dollars would be used to pay for abortions, which we have not had before. And so from our perspective, not only do we want to make sure that the life of the unborn is protected, but we surely should not have to suffer the injustice, the added injustice of having to pay for it. So I have asked people to call their representatives, their senators, and the governor's office to express their displeasure about this, and asking people who are representing us in elected office to vote against us.
And you asked the pastors to talk about this, to write about it in their bulletins?
That's right, and we gave information on how people can be contacted who represent us. It seems to me at a moment in which the state can't pass a budget to provide for the regular services, Catholic Charities is owed, again, $30 million for the services that we're providing, and yet they want to spend money on destroying the life in the womb. It also seems to me to be really a moment, again, to create further division in society. There is so much division going on right now. Why should we spend political capital on something like this? That is the message that I have made to the various members of the House, and I think that it's time now for people to weigh in.
And how can the average Catholic react best? How can they help with this?
Well, if they do not know who their representative are, or they need a contact, they can go to the Illinois Catholic Conference to find out about that. And we provided that information in the bulletins and in my letter as well. So my hope would be that people would follow up on that. We really need to take on the big issues in life. We have so many pressing issues in this state, and now all of a sudden this seems to be the priority. Making taxpayers pay for abortions, it just seems to be so out of whack and unjust.
You mentioned in your letter that this is an opportunity to draw together as a community of faith and to speak out on something that is very important to us.
Well, we have had a long-standing position that human life is precious. We should respect human dignity. Here we have so much violence in our streets. Why should we have the state now pay for violence in the womb? It just seems to me to be totally out of proportion to the things that we need to be doing in this state, and lacking in just common sense. My hope would be that people in Illinois who are known for their good common sense would express their displeasure about this bill.
As the Cardinal mentioned, contacting your representatives is fairly easy thanks to the Catholic Conference of Illinois. just go to their website at ilcatholic.org and click on the Take Action button. Since we recorded in our last program, Archbishop, refugees and immigrants are in the news again, particularly with the passing with the issuing of the executive order and action. You wrote about these issues in your column of the Catholic New World recently. In fact, you began your column by writing that it's healthy for our country to have a public debate about the issues that should shape our national policies. Yet, you wrote, that debate can be cheapened when we allow fear to obscure the facts.
Well, yes, that I think has to be a part of this whole dynamic. We have to make sure that we respect the immigrants, the refugees, whether they're documented or not, who are here in this country. There are people who are trying to better their lives, escape poverty, escape violence sometimes, and they have contributed mightily to our state and to our nation. And so there really is, I think, a need to make sure that we secure our borders and have safety. But time and again, these people have shown that they are not a threat to our safety. They enhance our country. So I think it's very important for us to keep in mind that we are better off because we are an immigrant nation. The other thing is, my concern is that when people are portrayed as criminals, as people who can do us harm without any basis whatsoever, it really does create an atmosphere of hatred, not only fear. And our country is better than that. We really hold high that torch on the Statue of Liberty, inviting people to come to our country, knowing that we're better off because of it. So my hope would be that we can move forward. We have called for comprehensive immigration reform. It's time. I said this the first time that I was interviewed here in the Archdiocese of Chicago, that we need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. If we do that, we will not have these problems. We will give people a path to citizenship, and we will stop having this kind of rhetoric about people that demean people, and also which tear our nation apart.
You made mention that immigrants enhance our country, they enhance our state, but here in Chicago, they also really enhance our Catholic community.
Very much so, and they're our brothers and sisters in faith. And we're doing this not just because these people are Catholic, a lot of them are Catholic, but we're doing it because we have, with this whole understanding of the respect for human dignity that motivates us to defend the unborn. It's the same cloth that we're talking about here, the same fabric of human dignity that we want to make sure that all of human life is respected.
In your column, you gave the image, they are blessings, not burdens.
Exactly, and that's for the child in the womb or the undocumented immigrant, the refugee who comes to our country. I put in my column the many people who have blessed this country as immigrants and as refugees across the board in industry, in politics, in diplomacy, people who have been inventors. We're better off because of that, and I am a grandson of immigrants, so I feel that in a very personal way.
Yeah. It's certainly something that should take our attention and that we should speak up for as well, right?
That's exactly.
You know, the House bill and the issue of immigrants and refugees, as we noted, you've been vocal about it. It strikes me even in the letter that you wrote to pastors that we were talking about just a little bit ago. You ended it by talking about how, really, for both of these issues, there's a connection to the Lenten springtime.
Right. Exactly, and it is. It's an opportunity for us to really appreciate the new life that comes into each one of our lives. The life of a child when a family gathers around to celebrate that wonderful addition, but also the way that we see a springtime in our country. Every time we have immigrants come here from different cultures, backgrounds, we are stronger because of that diversity. So my hope would be that people would see Lent, a word that means springtime, as an opportunity to reflect on how blessed we are with these many graces that come to us of new birth. The new birth of a child, the new birth of a nation through its immigration policies.
An opportunity for new life.
Yes.
With that, can we talk about Lent a little bit more?
Okay,
A little
sure.
more detail, huh?
That's right.
We're filming the day before Lent begins.
Mardi Gras.
Yeah, right.
You don't have any beads on.
That'll come after the show.
Okay,
That'll
good.
come after
Okay,
the show.
fine, good.
It's a great season. It's a great season. But Cardinal, let me ask you this. One of my most favorite lines comes from Father Walter Burkhardt. You remember Father Walter?
Oh, yes, I knew him.
Really?
Yes, when
Okay.
I worked in Washington,
of course.
D.C., yes.
All right, great. One of the best Catholic preachers that we've
Yes.
ever had. He had a great line. He said, "Most Catholics go into Lent kicking and screaming." Mm-hmm. There's no reason to, if we really dig down and uncover what's at the heart of Lent. It's not a dour, somber period, is it? I mean, there's joy in Lent, isn't there?
Well, it is. What I think is important to keep in mind is that Lent is a prolonged period of time for us to really allow God's grace to work into our lives. We want so often in life things to be immediate. Yeah. God's grace comes slowly. It's that dew that falls upon the grass, as we hear in the Psalm. It's like this silent growth beneath the soil in this winter season. Coming from Nebraska, I know what winter wheat is about. That it grows beneath the snow and beneath the crusty ground. So it's that kind of appreciation that the things of God do grow organically, slowly. I told someone once that when it comes to our spiritual lives, if we think of it in terms of a dish that we prepare, that we cook.
And you like to cook?
That it is more akin to a crock pot than a microwave. In terms of not being done all of a sudden. You know, microwaves can do things in just a few seconds, cook things. But the slow cooking process of a crock pot, that is what Lent does. Lent allows us to slow down, to have some silence, and to appreciate the slow growth in our life that has taken place, and to be open to further slow growth. So let's opt in Lent for the crock pot rather than the microwave.
Not to kill a metaphor, but to simmer a bit, huh?
That's
really?
right, exactly.
Right? To simmer and
that's right.
And
it takes quieting this down. We have to be quiet. Turn off the television, the computer. Don't be so active in your own social life. Take time to read Scripture. I've asked people to take time at the liturgy for prolonged silence after communion. I wrote in the latest issue of the Chicago Catholic that we need to take more time in the liturgy for quiet, for us to settle ourselves down. So it is a great season because we need to slow down. Our lives are too fast, too hectic.
Yeah. Of course, the Church points to the liturgies of Lent as one of the primary means by which God can encounter us, right, in our Lenten observances.
Yes.
And most recently, you celebrated one of the key liturgies of Lent at Holy Name Cathedral, the Rite of Election.
Right.
For our viewers, the Rite of Election is a fantastic, profound celebration where those who are preparing to enter the Paschal mystery of Christ through baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist, those who are coming into the church from another ecclesial community, they enter their final period, and they do it at the cathedral. And you elected 130-something catechumens for baptism, and you recognized another 150 candidates for a continuing conversion.
And I met each one of them separately.
Cardinal, I have to say that your homily at the Rite of Election was absolutely magnificent.
Thank you.
It really ties into what we were just talking about a few moments ago, where you talked about those who were coming into the church, their blessings to us, and yet tied it to those earlier points that we were discussing.
Well, yes. The simple point that I try to make to people was that we have a discussion going on about new people coming in to our country, and right at a time when the church is bringing in new people. We have had controversies in the church before about these new people, most of them who were Greeks rather than circumcised Jews. Also times in which the barbarians came, who for the most part are our ancestors because they came from those countries. But the church has always realized that those newcomers are a blessing and not a burden. And so my point would be that when you think of the immigrant and the refugee who's coming into our country, you are the new immigrant into the life of the church. And we're in solidarity with them and you.
Yeah. For our viewers, maybe just to encourage them to be aware of those who are the elect in their parishes this Lent, right?
Right, exactly. Because they have to be received by a community. There's a demand that's made of us in the community to make sure that they feel welcomed. And as some of them asked me afterwards when I had a chance to visit with them, how do we become involved in your parish? I said, first of all, you have to show up. You have to be there week after week to get to know people. But also, it's up to the community to invite them to be a part of various aspects of ministries, ways in which they can volunteer, in which their gifts are recognized. So it is a dialogue between the two, but it's important for them to show up.
Yeah. And for the community to know them, to pray for them, to encourage them, right? To support them in this journey.
Right, without question.
Yeah, in so many ways, the elect are a great example to us who are already baptized, what it means to be on fire, right? And what it means to want to know Christ.
But I could see, when they each came up to me so I could greet them, I could imagine they all have their own story of how they got there. And it was quite interesting to be able to talk to them and to greet them each individually. And it was a great joy in that service that last Sunday.
As I say, it was a wonderful celebration, so thank you for that. Something else that recently took place at Holy Name Cathedral was the 39th the African American Heritage Prayer Service.
Oh, yes.
Hundreds of students from Archdiocesan schools came from all over the Archdiocese. It was a wonderful celebration. The Office for TV and Radio was there, and they have this highlight for us.
Oh, great. Let's look at it.
The African American Heritage Prayer Service brought together students, administrators, and clergy to celebrate the rich history of Black Catholics in the Archdiocese of Chicago.
O most gracious God, visit us this day. Bless this day. Bless all the students here. Bless our schools, our principals, our churches. Bless our presiders and all of our honored guests. Bless our homes, our communities, and our nation.
Celebrate with us today as we gather together in your name, for you are the light of the world. May we decrease and allow you to increase in our lives so that we can be strengthened to live and not die, to proclaim the works of the Lord.
With you, Moja, as we worship from our roots. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Taking part in the prayer service were the second African American priest ever ordained in Chicago, Father George Clemens, and the newest African American priest ordained here, Father Michael Trail.
Today is your day in which we can celebrate you. We can celebrate the gift of blackness. We can celebrate the beauty of blackness. We can celebrate the beauty of our Catholic faith in its blackness. Today is a day in which we can do that. Today is an opportunity to do that.
During the prayer service, awards were presented to Mrs. Helen Dumas, principal of St. Sabina Academy, and Dr. Denise Davis Spells, principal of St. Ethelreda School. They were honored for their outstanding service to Catholic education in the Archdiocese. Also honored for being role models to their peers were Markel Anderson, a graduate of Christ the King Jesuit College Preparatory School, and Jessica Booker, a senior at Holy Trinity High School. Catholic School Superintendent Dr. Jim Rigg talked about the gift of diversity in our Catholic schools.
Nearly half of the 78,000 students that attend school in the Archdiocese of Chicago are students of color. And so we celebrate our unity in diversity today. We also, of course, celebrate the beauty and truth of Jesus Christ, who calls us to live lives of goodness peace and hope. And so while we celebrate our diversity, we know in the end there is no black or white or brown, there is no rich or poor, no city or suburb, no north side or south side. In the end, we are unified as one people in humankind, called to goodness and joy, love, compassion, and justice.
It will be ours, oh, one day. When the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure, oh, Lord.
That's always a festive celebration, and once again, it was this year. We're going to ask you to stick around because after the break, the Cardinal and I will discuss Amoris Laetitia, the joy of love, Pope Francis's apostolic exhortation. We'll be right back.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
Welcome back to Catholic Chicago. We're here with Cardinal Blase Cupich. Cardinal, there's been some questions about Pope Francis's apostolic exhortation, Amoris Laetitia, the joy of love. Now, this was his exhortation that he wrote after the Synod on the Family. You were part of that. And in particular, in Chapter 8, there were questions about the Pope's remarks and comments. Could you tell us a bit about that, because there's some development here?
Well, I think that anytime there is any kind of a papal document, or even when scriptures were written, when the Lord spoke, there were questions about what is meant. And it's very clear to me what the Holy Father is doing. He is saying that people who are in so-called irregular situation in terms of their marriage, we have to reach out to them in a pastoral way. We have to do three things. We have to encounter them, we have to accompany them, and we have to integrate them. And there are some people who are in difficult situations who need that kind of pastoral care that allows them to come back to the sacraments. Now, it's not a universal call for everybody to come back, but through a discernment, through working with the pastor, there is a possibility of discerning what the divine pedagogy, as the Pope calls it, how is God working in the life of that person. Now, some people have said, well, this is something new and it's a development, and it is a development, but it's a legitimate development out of our tradition. And so recently I see that, not in response necessarily to any of the Holy Father's, the questions about the Holy Father's document, but on his own, the head of legislative text, interpretation of legislative text, Cardinal Pomario, came out with a nice little book of about 50 pages in which he says, yes, this is a legitimate way forward for the Church. This is in keeping with what we teach. But he and others who have come in very strong defense of what the Holy Father has written have helped us really understand some of the deeper teachings that sometimes we leave latent. And so there's much on conscience that we're learning about, much on how God works in the individual lives in terms of discernment, of how doctrine is developed in the life of the Church. So all of these things have prompted, I think, a wide and very healthy discussion on a number of aspects of our faith. So I'm not at all concerned by the questions that people have raised. I think it's always good to do that. But I do think that the Pope has been very clear, concise, and I fully embrace what he is saying. This is a magisterial document. This is a teaching of the successor of Peter that needs our respect and our support.
I think it's worth noting. The book is, the text is in Italian now, I believe. It's being translated into English.
Right.
And you've written the foreword.
Well, I've been asked by people involved to do the foreword, and so this book will be coming out in English very soon.
It's an important piece of writing that would be important for the Church. So thank you for your involvement in that. Cardinal, our last topic for today's show is, again, it's in the national news, it's in the local news, but just the whole question and the whole issue of violence here in Chicago. What can just the people in our parishes, what can we do in the face of this crisis?
Well, it's a question that I'm often asked, and it's a question that gives me hope because it says to me that there are a lot of people who care about this and want some change and want to be a part of the change. That's why I established a special commission to help me, first of all, look at what we're already doing, to take an inventory of how we're doing anti-violence through our many programs. I now have received that report with some recommendations, and now I've asked that same group to come forward with some specific goals that we can achieve moving forward in engaging the wider population of the city, but also the ecumenical community and the people in the parishes. So we hope to be rolling that out fairly soon, and it'll be a combination of ways in which we can help neighborhoods rebuild a sense of trust among themselves to take responsibility, also with law enforcement, ways in which we can be supportive of law enforcement who so often find themselves at risk in different parts of our city, to make sure that they have the confidence to move forward, and encourage the justice system to work forward as well, because many of these murders are unsolved, and we have to have some justice in this situation. But also for us to give witness to the fact that violence solves nothing. We know that there are too many guns on the street. We know that many times there are drugs, gangs involved. But sometimes, too, it's because there's a lack of employment. There's a sense of hopelessness. We can be a part of helping in those areas. So I would just say, as you do in television land, stay tuned.
Yeah. Is this not another area where we could equally say what you and I were just talking about at the beginning of the show, that in many ways our response to the violence in the city can be impeded by fear.
Right.
In so many ways, it's still part of reaching out for our Catholic communities, right?
Right. And I think if you only have a defensive posture, you're really never going to allow those fears to be broken down. So we need to remind people that there's so much that unites us rather than divides us.
That, the issue with immigration and refugees, talking about the House Bill 40, all of that here at the very start of Lent, an awful lot in this program, but an awful lot to carry us through this season, right? This reflective season.
And I would go back to HB 40 again and ask people to really become involved. Maybe to think it this way: we begin the 40 days of Lent. Let's make sure we have the right 40, the 40 days of Lent, rather than House Bill 40.
Nice. Cardinal, happy Lent to you.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for everything today.
Thanks, Todd. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm Todd Williamson. Join us again next time for more Catholic Chicago.
We invite you to watch segments of Catholic Chicago and hundreds of additional Catholic videos at youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter.